My name is Lindsay McMurrin from Minnesota Communities Caring for Children. I'm a citizen of the Leech Lake Nation and work with my organization around I'm Director of Prevention Initiatives for the north central part of the state. So our organization is home of Prevent Child Abuse Minnesota. We are very much focused on prevention efforts, empowering individuals, parents, families, and communities. And really talking about how we've spent a lot of time and energy focusing on treating symptoms when we really need to start looking at the root causes of problems. We tend to spend a lot of time and money and effort and resources downstream. We need to start looking upstream and start preventing these things from happening in the first place, creating environments, empowering parents, to build skills, to break cycles that are perpetuating these cycles of intergenerational trauma.
We focus on prevention, so we have different program initiatives that focuses on that prevention. One of those programs is the Circle of Parents program, which is a peer-to-peer support group that parents lean on and gather support from each other. Although our name is Minnesota Communities Caring for Children, we do that by training, educating, and giving parents supports and tools to strengthen their families.
You know, that historical trauma and adversity is really impacting a lot of the contemporary issues we're seeing across the board. So not only are we working with parents and children, families in that sense, but really to bring a whole community into the conversation. People want to go fast in this work because we see such a need. Part of it is stepping back and questioning maybe some of our own perspectives and biases that we hold that are negatively impacting the way that we interact and work with others. So getting people to do that self-work is definitely the first step, but it's a hard one. And really, to me, that internal personal work that needs to happen first, that's how we're going to see sustainable change across systems. We more so are working with service providers, through our circle of parents, and some of our parents advocacy groups. We are working directly with parents and children, but more so we're building capacity within communities to do the work in their own communities.
And I was going to mention that as one of our challenges is that we are very parent focused. However, sometimes working with other systems, other agencies, organizations, they have a problem with bringing those parents to the table. So we try to implement and express, that it is vital, that it's very important to have those parents at the table.
I'm Donna Minter. I'm the Executive Director and Founder of Minnesota Peacebuilding Leadership Institute, and we believe that when terrible things happen, our peace is stolen from us. And so what we teach at Minnesota Peacebuilding Leadership Institute is how to transform psychological trauma into nonviolent power. And we do that with community-based trainings, educational trainings for professionals and lay people. But our organization does community-based trainings, primarily for adults, to help people learn how to be trauma-informed, resilient-oriented, and restorative justice focused. So using restorative justice principles and practices and philosophies to be able to address the traumas, both individual and community traumas, collective traumas, because what we do is then say, yes, it's ACEs, and it's also collective traumas, like historical traumas, transgenerational traumas, structural traumas, dignity violations, cultural traumas. And when we can name those traumas and understand what they are, then it's easier to tame them, to figure out what to do about them. How can we have productive conversations? How can white allies have productive conversations with white racism skeptics? How do we teach people to change these structural traumas that we can't just leave it to people of color? White people have to do this too.
So the Family Enhancement Center is one of those places where kids do go for actual psychotherapy and healing of abuse and trauma. And we integrate body-based yoga, dance, movement, art in the healing process. So NEST is a program that is a mentor for parents. we take volunteers who want to mentor a parent, and we ask this mentor to kind of walk beside that parent through the stresses and trials and tribulations of parenting for 3 years, which is a long time. But it's, in our experience, 3 years is what's needed. One of our stories that I'd like to tell about Nest is that we had one family that we matched with a mentor, and the year before they were matched, they called the police over 100 times to their home.
Wow.
Because of kind of domestic, or they just, couldn't manage the situation. The first year of the mentor, the police were called once.
Wow.
So it can make a lot of difference, but that mentor got a lot of phone calls.
Education plays a big part in it. I think as a community and as a student, with all the research that I have come across, we need to put more education in our communities about how to prevent trauma. Just having those little sections of the communities that they can reach out to provide those information to them.
My standpoint is that frequently you can't look at healing until you eat, until you have housing, until you have medical care.
Right.
And so to be healed, you first have to have some place where you can be comfortable enough to heal. You can't think about healing if you're hungry. And frequently they don't know they're in trauma.
That's their normal.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the same piece with PTSD, because I also work with refugees and asylums, and they're normal to someone like me or you. They don't see that as not normal because they've lived that.
I would define that as survival mode. That is, when any person
That's the
is
word.
in
Yeah.
survival mode, you
Yeah.
cannot see anything beyond that door. We need a policy situation that gets people out of survival mode,
Right.
not thrust them in
Structural.
and hold them there.
Yeah.
It's about distribution of resources, and everything starts with policy at the top.
It keeps the structures from traumatizing people.
Yeah.
Because that's what
Yeah.
we have, is structures, even the structures that are put in place to try to help, oftentimes end up traumatizing people. Like,
We need resources that are equitable to that community. Because what my community may need, your community may not need.
Right. Our history has been built on slavery and theft and genocide. And so habits that get repeated become automatic and are built in and are almost invisible.
so what you're saying is we need to build community.
Yeah.
People need to have relationships with each other, neighbor to neighbor, so they already do care, but they have to know one another, and they have to know that. So when they are knowing that, and then they do speak up because they do care.
I agree with everything that you all are saying. I grew up in a home where I was trafficked from basically the age that I was born, in a multi-generational trafficking ring, and I was sold to numerous, primarily men, who tortured me and other women and children, and none of what you're talking about would do anything to change them or stop them. I agree that people who are that there are people who they will have their needs met and they will stop abusing their children or stop abusing their wives, and I believe that people can change, and I've known perpetrators to change, and I always just think, what can we really do about that? I grew up knowing that if I hit the streets, they would have had me back, and that would have been it for me. Because if you do anything to throw or disrupt or bring attention from any kind of authority onto what you're being used in, you're done for. And that's why I never ran away, because I knew that my best survival was to stay in my house. Because I feel as an adult now, it's my duty to stand up for kids who are in those situations right now. It's my duty to speak out for them. You can provide all the education and the whatever, and they're going to keep doing what they're doing unless we stop them. When I stepped forward at 19 and I was like, my father did this to me, what did people say to me? Yeah, we thought that way, he was doing that to you. I think that needs to be part of the conversation, because the vast majority of sexual violence against children is committed by family members. The vast majority of the rape of adult women is committed, in the home, and that needs to be natural part of any of these conversations that we're having. But what I have experienced in my life is that people who would not rape a toddler do not understand. You cannot comprehend that there are many, primarily men, but sometimes women, raping children.
Yeah.
The younger the children are in the pornography, the higher the level of violence committed against them. It just is so crucial that we understand that there are people who make a mistake or who do something, and people can. I know men who have battered, previous partners and genuinely changed. So I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but there's this thing at the middle of it that is just really different.
So how do we start creating community that really actually invests in each other's lives?
Being able to reach outside your social circle to ask for help. So really bringing back community, bringing back that idea of the village, bringing back that idea if you see something, you can speak up about it without fear of backlash.
I don't know what happened to communities. I don't know what happened to knocking on my neighbor's door.
People have to have a living wage, and they've got to have a safe place to live. They have to have enough to eat. They have to have insurance. We got to take care of people so they can live. There's a lot that has to do with taking care of poverty in this country and making sure that people who work full time have enough money to live, and that's not happening in the United States. Community I think is extremely important, but people have to be out of survival mode.